anytime we assert something or believe that something exists, then, and this is specific to philosophy. So I'm not trying to be like a philosophy douchebag, but kind of like, if I ask you a law question, you would say, well, in the domain of law, you kind of got to do the rules of law. In the same way, in the domain of philosophy or logic, there's there's laws and rules that kind of have to be followed, like the laws of debate, for example. So even though we're not in a formal debate, even in an informal exchange, there's still kind of, it's like the game of chess, right? There's laws to the chessboard, and I can't come and like just flip it over and say, I won because I flipped it over, right? There's laws that dictate it, which I would argue are kind of invariant, they're immaterial, they are the case. So any exchange has to follow these rules, these laws. These would be the laws of logic. These would be things like informal fallacies, right? I can't just come to the debate and spout a bunch of fallacies and say, I won. No, I'm not following the rules. So likewise, if the question arises about, say, ethics and what are these ethical values, where are they, how do we derive them, what's the justification for them? That's a very specific kind of philosophical term and argument that anything that we posit that exists or that we believe in, we need not just any reasons, but we actually need good reasons for why we believe in them. So my argument was that morals and the Ten Commandments, these kinds of things, they make sense in a world where there is a God. If there's not a God, even though you might choose. I like how Jim Bob is basically on a boat and he's rocking more and more. Like the more whiskey that goes into Jim Bob, the more Jim Bob's like about to tip over. Everybody in the chat getting tipsy. Everybody in the chat getting tipsy. Jim Bob is getting tipsy, right? I'm watching Jim Bob, not even listening to my argument. Them for subjective, pragmatic motives. There's not really any basis or epistemic justification for believing in those things or saying that they exist. So you might like them, you might prefer them, but what's the actual argument in the sense of like justified true belief, grounding for why you would believe in the ethics? And if it doesn't meet those criterion, then what happens in philosophy is that we say it's really just an unjustified assertion and it doesn't count as an argument. Does that make sense? So it's like the constant frustration that I experience is that we're talking about stuff that are, what can I liken it to? Imagine we're mechanics and we know everything about the structure and makeup of a car. We know all the parts, how they go together. This thing over here, this runs this thing, this lubricates this other thing to make this thing go, And it's just like a super complex, mobile computer that rolls down the road. And we know all about it, right? And so everybody else rides in cars and drives cars, but they don't know anything about the inner workings of the car, right? So when somebody says, let's have a discussion of cars. And by the car, I don't mean this in some arrogant way, like the car is God and I know everything about God. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the domain of laws of thought and argumentation and debate. That's what I'm talking about here. And metaphysics and the basics of philosophy, right? The car's philosophy here, not knowing everything about God for all you piety goons in the audience. And so everybody else is like driving around in the car and they don't care about the inner workings of the car, right? And so when we go to talk to these people about cars and I say, tell me what you think of the workings of a car. What do most people say? Oh yeah, dude, you're talking about my Bugatti and it run fast. Put oil in, put gas in, it go quick. Right? That's what people are thinking. Cool car, drive fast. Honda Civic, Toyota Corolla. And I'm thinking engine, ignition, part, all this guy. Like that's what I'm thinking of when I think of cars. So when we have this conversation, I say, yes, and I don't know shit about cars, so I'm trying to make this analogy work. I don't know anything about cars. Yes, my friend, what do you think of the drive shaft and its components, the way that they connect to the ignition? Car go fast, right? They don't know what you're talking about. The heck's a drive shaft? I don't know. Shaft. Oh yeah, shaft, right? Well, I don't know what a drive shaft is. Car go fast. Car look cool. Car get chick, right? That's what most people are thinking about cars. They're not thinking about the workings and the components, right? And it's like most people, imagine, well, the car works because you could just put liquid inside of it and it go. So any liquid can go in, or are there rules to what liquids you can put in the car to make it go? It's the same with argumentation, with logic, with epistemology. You can't just say anything and make argument go. But people can't get this. It's just like, it's two different languages. When I say car, I'm thinking of the drive shaft and all these stupid parts and components, and this thing ignites and causes a chemical reaction, and that runs this thing, and this goes through this part, and everyone else is just thinking car go fast. Okay, so fine, car go fast, but there's rules to car go fast. Like, you can't just put bug juice, right? You can't put Purple Saurus Rex in the gas tank and it runs, right? You can't just push accelerator and it go through wall. No, it doesn't go. That thing doesn't go through walls. There's rules about this. There's things that govern the logic of that car. It doesn't go through walls. I mean, you could try to go through a wall, but car no go fast when you go through wall, right? But no one thinks of the laws of thought and argumentation this way, but they're the same. There's rules to it.